Welcome back, everyone. Now, 50,000 people, including world leaders, are expected to arrive in Brazil this November for COP30. But questions are being asked about the construction of a highway that's already damaged thousands of acres of protected Amazon rainforest ahead of the conference. Joining me now is environmental scientist Laura Young. Laura, it's getting increasingly difficult, isn't it, to defend this move? Morning, what are your thoughts?
It is incredibly disappointing that we have seen this infrastructure bill. Really, if there's any conference globally that should not be doing this, it would be the COP conferences, because we are discussing climate change, biodiversity, and deforestation, among other topics. So it's incredibly frustrating that this has happened so close to the site. There was a real excitement that Belém was going to be hosting this summit. It was going to be a bit different. And the whole purpose of Brazil picking Belém was to prove a point, to make a statement about hosting it next to the opening of the Amazon, to really highlight the importance of nature and trees and biodiversity. Yet they have picked somewhere that does not have capacity for the up to 50,000 people that are expected to go. And we, of course, have seen stories about this highway that is removing such precious bits of the Amazon forest. And we also know that there's conversations about building more infrastructure like hotels and even bringing cruise ships along the Amazon to dock so that it can host this many people. And it really raises the question about how appropriate this was as a location, but also it opens up the wider conversation about how a climate conference continues to be in the news because of controversial planning decisions. We, of course, know that it's been hosted previously by Dubai and Baku, which are oil states. There's been fossil fuel lobbies, and there's been things like excessive private jet use. So really, it kind of raises the hypocrite question when we are out there trying to negotiate every year about the future of the planet, yet for some reason we can't seem to get the planning right when choosing the location.
Will you be going, and do you think it will deter any other activists from attending this year?
I have been to the last 4 summits, and certainly the last 2 have been controversial for their fossil fuel links in terms of number of lobbyists that have gone, and of course the countries themselves. And you have to weigh up as an individual or as an organisation, is it important that I go? Will I be able to make a personal impact? And do we need delegates to be there? That is a decision that I, alongside many others, will have to make this year. I think on balance, I do feel that it's important for people to go, but I think the COP process could definitely be made more eco-friendly. I think we could look at the number of delegations and the number of delegates that go. I think there could be a slimming down in many different areas, and there are probably ways that we could take part of it more virtual, digital, online. But of course, it is still important to gather in person. So I will still be planning on going this year, but of course, like many other campaigners and activists who go, we'll be looking at ways that we can try and have an influence even before the summit has happened, to try and influence it to be environmentally sustainable alongside the actual negotiations that we are trying to push for.
Do you think, generally, just zooming out for a moment, that COP has the same sway as it did, say, back 4 years ago? You know, COP26 was huge. It was in Glasgow. The Prime Minister was there. World leaders came. But lately, it doesn't feel like it has the same impact. I might be wrong, but how do you feel?
No, I probably echo your feelings. You could also argue that this COP is going to be COP 30. So we have actually had these 30 times before, and we maybe haven't seen the progress that we would have wanted to, having met 30 times. I think off the back of COVID, that has definitely knocked climate change down the agenda. And COP26 that was in Glasgow was in 2021. It was in that sort of coming out of COVID phase. And I think we certainly have pushed it down the agenda. I think we also have to look at the geopolitical state of the world. And certainly 2024, we had half the world go to the polling station. We have had a change in governments and leadership in many different countries, some of whom, countries like the States, the United States, do not have a leadership that is on board with climate action anymore. And I think that pushes it down the agenda as well. And we certainly felt when we were in Baku, Azerbaijan, that America was going to be slipping away, and that's a huge player at the table. So I think the geopolitical leadership of the world has pushed it down the agenda. But the important thing to remember is that climate change has not gone away. We've seen things like the flooding in Spain, the wildfires in LA, and increased storms even here in the UK recently. So we know that the impact of climate change is continuing. It will continue whether we get our act together or not. And so I think it's important to refocus and actually try and work towards COP30 as one that can be successful. But it is a tough challenge. And I think it's because climate change, on one hand, is always there, but on the other hand is sometimes a distant thought for people because it isn't necessarily something that people face every single day. And so it is a constant battle to try and keep the conversation rumbling on, and that's something that's even relevant here in the UK.
All right then, Laura, we'll have to leave it there. Great to get your take this morning.
Thank you.